Hello, everyone, and welcome to AWE Nite Houston. My name is Walter Davis, and I'm AWE Nite Houston organizer, and this is our very first launch event. I'm really excited about it. We're going to be talking about the Houston XR ecosystem. Houston is the city with no limits. Now, just to keep everyone in touch, I'd like to let you know that we've got a couple of ways to keep in the know-how about more upcoming events from AWE Nite Houston. So we've got a new LinkedIn page where you can scan the barcode there on the page, and it'll take you directly to our brand new AWE Nite Houston LinkedIn page, as well as you can see there's a meetup QR code there as well. That'll take you to our meetup site. Both of those will have all of our events listed in there for both now and going forward. So if you want to stay in touch on the next upcoming event, just feel free to check out those pages. And if you're participating or joining, please be sure to tag AWE Nite Houston on LinkedIn or hashtag AWE Nite Houston on relevant social media platforms. So what is AWE? Well, AWE Nite is there's a larger ecosystem, if you would, of AWE Nites hosted by Augmented World Expo. So Augmented World Expo has a number of nights all across the world, just like we have now this new one that we're launching here in Houston. But there's nightly meetups everywhere from San Francisco all the way over to Japan and everywhere in the middle. So as you can see, lots of those listed and hosted all around the world. I wanted to make you all aware the Augie Awards are open right now. So AWE has that. The Augie Award nominations are open. So be sure to get your nomination for Augie Award. There's a number of different categories for the Augie Awards. So those are up right now and open for submission. So if you would like to submit yourself or about someone else, or your organization project, be sure to go over to the Augie Awards page, have a look, and get your submission in as early as possible to be part of that. So how else can you engage with the AWE community? Well, for one, AWE Academy offers a number of different courses to help XR startups. There's the AWE event. Actually, the AWE is going to be hosting an in-person event this year happening in November. So there's early bird rate happening just for here a couple more days. Be sure to check that out. Check out the early bird rates that apply. There's also AWE Academy. Also, there's an upcoming Introduction to Oculus Quest 2 development, and AWE Academy is hosting a Web AR workshop. So AWE Academy has a number of sessions that provide more insights and information around, like I said, XR development, startup, how to get started. I know they had a really great one actually hosted from Charlie Fink here not long, just a couple weeks ago. It was great, covering how to leverage this immersive technology for collaboration. So AWE Academy has some really great sessions, and I'd recommend checking those out. And how else can you just keep in touch with the AWE and this community? So they're AWEs on all the major social platforms, whether it's YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Insta. So all of those there, and they regularly post news and updates from across sort of the spatial and immersive technology ecosystem. And there's also the weekly spatial. So if you'd like to receive the newsletter, it's put out every week. It's a really great summary of news around the AR/VR community. I'd recommend signing up for that. So the weekly spatial, you can sign up for that over at awexr.com and check that out. So for AWE Nite Houston, in particular, what do we have coming up? So, I mean, aside from our event that we have today with a couple of great panelists, there's also a partner event coming up here in Houston. So a couple, not just AWE Nite event, but also from some others that are relevant here. There's ATD Houston's hosting a Transforming Learning event happening in April. You can sign up for that now. It's happening April 22nd, and they'll have a keynote speaker from Kathy Hackle. Obviously, immersive tech's really critical. It's a critical piece to the future of learning and transforming and learning in new and different ways. So I would recommend checking that out. We'll have our next AWE Nite Houston Ask session in April as well on the 28th with our Ask the Expert session. So in that session, we'll talk strategy, we'll talk implementation, creation, XR projects, design, and we've got a variety of experts that are joining us to answer your questions from different aspects of XR, whether it's how to get started, how to create a strategy, design, project, etc. We'll have a few experts with us to help answer all of your questions on how to get started, or even just how to bring your project to the next level. And the Houston Tech Rodeo. So we'll be hosting a couple of sessions at the AWE Night Will at the Houston Tech Rodeo happening in May. We're actually looking at, and the dates are to be determined, but we have having 3 sessions during that event. One will be covering aligned. The themes will be aligned with the event. One will be talking about clean energy, the other will be about space, and one about actually immersive technology. But we're going to have all of that hosted in AltSpace VR, so really excited about that. So be sure to check out Houston Tech Rodeo. Again, there'll be 3 sessions running in AltSpace. Those will all be organized through AWE, and we're also partnering with VRARA on that. So what's our agenda for today? So yeah, really excited. We got our panel discussion, and then Sean's going to take us through the Industrial XR report results. And after that, we have a game. And after this game, where Sean will be giving away a pair of tickets to the winner of the trivia contest. A couple of free tickets to attend the Industrial XR Forum happening later on this year. So really big thank you to Industrial XR Forum and to Sean and his team for donating those tickets. So yeah, you'll want to stick around for the trivia results if you want to have a chance to win a couple of free tickets to Industrial XR Forum. And so now getting it kicked off. With our panel discussion. So here I'll give you a quick introduction into a couple of our panelists. So we have Karen Snyder joining us from Karen Snyder is Managing Director of TYM Studio, an internship with Training Studio, and a professor of digital media at the University of Houston. So Karen has over 20 years of experience in developing and creating multimedia projects across all media platforms. She's also an advocate for serious games. She's created and produced the Healthcare Game Showdown and the XR Showdown. I love the XR Showdown, actually. Also, by the way, love those programs that she puts together, both of which allow for young talent opportunities to work with enterprise companies as they develop serious simulations. So welcome, Karen. Josh. So Josh Rubin, he's co-founder of Z3VR, and as co-founder, Josh leads teams working at the intersection of virtual reality and biosensors. And Z3VR is developing tools to address chronic psychiatric conditions. So really interesting stuff, fascinating stuff that Josh and his team are working on. Excited to hear from him. And Sean Guerra. So Sean is Managing Director of Innovate Energy. He's founded the Industrial XR Forum, bringing together immersive tech leaders together with industrial enterprise to help enable them to decrease costs and risk while increasing safety and enhancing training and knowledge transfer. And that event is obviously a major event for industrial and immersive tech in the immersive tech industry, which I know a lot of folks in Houston are a part of. So I guess here to kick us off, I will kick it off with our first questions over to Karen. So Karen, you have some unique experience leading and organizing large events and initiatives and partnering with students and industry, so bringing student and industry together. So before we dive into that, would you mind talking us through some of the educational opportunities in Houston?
For those of you who are unaware of the joys of academia, it takes me an average of 5 years to get a new course curriculum officially approved as an accredited track. Generally, a lot of colleges, they actually start with a certificate program, meaning it's non-accredited because it's actually quicker to try out or do things. But this isn't so easy then, because we start seeing gaps arise between the shift of what academia needs and what the business needs. So we start saying, hey, how can we bridge some of these gaps and see talent arise? In particular, with engineering jobs that are VR focused, that usually means someone who is at least familiar with one of the video game engines that are generally the top two, being Unreal and Unity. Granted, there are other programs and there are other ways, but those are generally the ones that we see a lot of the VR and AR built in. And that requires someone who knows these engines to step in. UI and UX for the VR and AR is a different methodology. Alethea's here. She was joining us last year as one of our mentors with ExxonMobil. She's fantastic, by the way. If you have any UI, UX needs, she really brought a lot of power to the students through her understanding and awareness. But it's a different methodology and a different flow that has to be communicated versus 2D world. 3D, of course, real-time 3D is different. It is not the same as 3D that I produce for video. So as well, you have optimization and or performance issues that you have to be aware of that has to be trained in. A lot of this is ignored. A lot of the programs in academia tend to still focus on PC games or console games instead of even mobile and XR at all. And this is, again, a continuing challenge when it comes to demands. And as well, you have the interactive producer. These types of producers are still very unique, how they have to strategize, think through all the holistic needs to carry a project through. When we see these pipelines are shifting, because this is all about communications as well, how do our pipelines shift? So as an example, right in the middle of the spring semester, for our simulation and gaming course, we are taking a traditional 2D PowerPoint and transforming it into a 3D virtual reality experience. Well, how does this shift even how you create said presentation? Well, a lot of us, at minimum, we would plan our PowerPoint, we would write up our PowerPoint, we would add images. The better PowerPoint presenters might actually add in video or animations or add sounds before they get completed. Well, when you're looking at VR, you have to think all that. And there isn't an easy repository. There is not an easy 3D PowerPoint program with a already pre-built at minimum assets. So this also requires some shift in thinking as we continue to move our communications over, and is a part of our challenge that we're facing with education, as well as the opportunities.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I think we can relate to that. And I mean, the timelines change, and then also with the pandemic upon us. I mean, I'm surprised that you guys can get through all of this with it in education. So I wanted to shift though focus a little bit now. So I know you're on the education side, but you also run these really cool events, so called XR Showdown, and you've also had the healthcare Showdown, and bringing students together with the industry that they to work with the industry and solve some of their problems for them. So I guess to start us off, can you kick it off with, so what kind of opportunities are there for students, and what kind of skills do they need to bring to get into the Showdown? Like, how do you know which students to take for those applying to be part of the XR Showdown?
Well, a lot of this is mentor heavy. So when you look at some of our goals of where we're heading now, the Time Studio, which is where we run the internships, because I cannot run them inside University of Houston, just to be aware. There's legal and other lovely issues that come into play, but they do complement me. So we complement each other. Having said that, the Time Studio, our goals really here are how can we act as that bridge? So these events happen to be focused on that. And we've gone beyond just even these one-time events that are filmed to broadcast these new jobs and opportunities and our community and our amazing mentors, but also where they can go. So beyond just the skills we look for, a lot of these have to do with the normal job criteria and reviewing them. Our lead mentors for the Showdowns also review the students. So we try to pick the best of the best. We want the ones that we can really focus in on and that can really be transformative to our community. Then they go through the specific needs of that Showdown. And each of the teams generally has had a enterprise leader or sponsor who's in which they're creating and or doing problem solving for them according to the needs of that particular client. So last year, beyond the Showdown, we also had other mentors running other internships on the side. And we had over 50 mentors, amazing, amazing folks. It would take all 10 minutes to list everybody, but keep looking on our LinkedIn, which I'll pop up because we constantly put up pretty much a video a week of different mentors, different students, different people we highlight, how they brought value, where they might be at a good place as new talent, young talent. But I mean, it's really mentor heavy because we are continuing to try to see, look, let's take these young talent, and some of them are also older talent, adults who are in programs or retraining, continue to pair them up so that they can have the professional mentorship, see the contracted projects, and in a showdown, we actually film it and live stream it and continuing to spread word so that people are awakened. A lot of the students, again, are very much focused on video game jobs, and that's all lovely and that's wonderful, but we're not Austin folks, and we're not New York, and we're not LA, and we're not Seattle, and we're not San Francisco. So let's focus on the needs here. Well, a lot of these have to do with serious use. So when you look at where some of the results are, which look, there's some of our cool, amazing mentors right there in the front row, Kyle Duarte, Anicha Tamachapong, Chad Modad, Josh Rubin, Josh Bankston, Dennis Matthews, Jared Benz. Some of those are all here. That was actually because Sean Geary, by the way, kindly allowed the students to present live last year at the XR Industrial Forum. Thank you, Sean. So the things that they've created and the ways that we've tried to bridge to getting them jobs with the healthcare game Showdown that ran in 2019 at the Texas Medical Center. We created games for Texas Children's Hospital, AT&T, and Mount Sinai. And again, huge collaboration between community rising up to meet the need, mentors, studios, whole teams like the HTX labs, all this coming together so that we can continue to see that shift go on and people rise. And in the classroom as well, we've had different folks seek to raise up the skill levels. It's very difficult. I'm always running under budget constraints underneath UIH. And so we've had kind people like, this is Julian Herrera. He not only mentored, but he also has been part of the Clutch IO software for progressive web app development. He was in, he allowed us to, and helped us to gain the software for free to utilize in classroom. Builder's working with us right now this quarter to have a way to create VR without code. Because again, if we need to hand over this presentation to a client, most of them don't have video game engines. They don't know how to do this stuff. So we need a way to just hand it over and just say, here, you can make changes and you don't even have to code it. So, you know, making it easier for them to progress. We have a lot of community people, again, who've spoken to this, and this is only a few of the voices that are continuing to rise. Stuart Corp, I'm paraphrasing him, so Stuart, I think you're here tonight, but if I happen to unintentionally unparaphrase you incorrectly, but he's doing a lot in his track over and Mighty, and really pushing the boundaries of where in healthcare we can see communication, some of the student work coming involved. KPMG, they have a whole new track that they are producing in the accounting world. How can we continue to energize in this area and see jobs again and rise in this area? And our continuing work with Texas Children's Hospital as well. So.
Awesome. I mean, a lot going on, big community. You touched on the mentors already a little bit. Could you, I guess, maybe elaborate where do your mentors tend to come from? What kind of organizations? And two, and maybe you could touch on some of the projects that the teams work on for the Showdown. What are the outputs? Do you have some examples you could share with us?
Yes.
Of some of those, and maybe talk through what happens or what they look like?
You know, PIM mentors are so incredibly of value. We try to mix it up because, of course, everyone can do it in different ways. Some mentors are actually paid because they're doing some of the physical work here, meaning it's not just me coming in for 3 hours, scoring students and leaving. That's still of great, tremendous value, but that's a far, far less than actually going in there and helping code or going in there and actually doing the 3D. So it depends on the team constructs and the project, and it dependent on what the time commitment that somebody can do. But here's some of the ones that we can give brief overviews. We just finished the Galveston History, which is down in Galveston, doing an augmented reality mobile experience for the guests to try to encourage young viewers to get involved in history. People love this, by the way, when we introduced XR Showdown last year. We're in the middle of the Houston Freemanstown Conservancy. We're working with Revelation Interactive on this one that's led by Dennis Matthews, one of our lead mentors. And this will be a whole, again, AR history experience downtown at the Freedmanstown. If no one's, I didn't even know some of this history. It's been fantastically fun going through, but that's coming up. And so we have in time for Juneteenth, that will be an experience highlighting our African-American community. Thereupon, we are just heading into our first official test. This is the world's first hospital at-home care game built out at Texas Children's Hospital, which we're going to continue to extend to allow children and parents better ways to handle their health care journey at home. Some of the other experiences that we worked on during the XR Showdown with two teams with ExxonMobil, one of them had to do with a augmented reality with machine learning app that was utilized for warehousing. The HCC MACE team was working on haptic feedback suite for training. And we also had another, this case, VR that had to do with a VR experience to help train electrical engineers. So these are all different projects that we've been involved in. We've got quite a few more that are in the works right now.
Awesome. So, I mean, those look like some amazing projects. Actually, one question I know we didn't have prepared, but I'd like to ask, how long do they get to build these things? I mean, how long is the showdown? How much time are the students spending on these projects?
Well, the showdowns are time specific, so they're either 4 to 6 weeks. But the internships that we're running outside of the showdowns have continued to increase. So my goal was always, okay, if this is meant to be and we're truly filling a gap in our community and we're helping our business associates and we're seeing these bridge happen, then we're going to move from the showdowns to quarterly internships and then to 6-month internships and then to year. And we're absolutely on track to year-round internships coming up. Hopefully with a couple more contracts, we will be heading there within 2 months. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. So like I said, that was amazing. Thank you, Karen. Before we hand it over to Josh, how can the folks learn about TYM Studio, the stuff you guys are doing, and the XR Showdown?
Well, hey folks, we got something cool you can all participate in. So you can see Alethea on screen, man, and Josh and our amazing Sean. We're gonna have a premiere. COVID hit the end of our XR Showdown right at the tail end. Thankfully, we were able to finish filming, but we weren't able to get to our executive training. And we had planned this because a lot of people had asked us, hey, can you please help train my bosses so they'll approve more projects? So I said, okay, let's figure that out. But that had to be preempted. So we're coming back to it this year. So we're going to be renting out the Studio Movie Grill over in City Center during the Houston Tech Rodeo. And on Friday, May 21st, we're going to basically have booths running throughout. So hopefully some of you even might be wanting to be a part of it, because I'm just reaching out to people. This is all very wet, fresh paint. We will be doing a private showing for executives with a complimentary lunch. So if you know executives that you really think should come in, watch the documentary, and then go through all the booths and experience the XR tech, yes, we will have clean to make sure all the tech's clean, don't worry. But that way they can actually move from case studies, firsthand experience to actually doing, and then say, you know what, this has relevance. I see why this brings value to our community for my sales, my marketing, my training. And then we're going to have a second showing in the evening for all the Houston Tech ticket holders. Again, this is free. It's to continue to raise awareness. So if you have other folks that you want to get message out or feel this to be really a good kind of mix of learning, doing, community growth, please get involved. And you can find out more information on our website. Until Houston Tech Rodeo, they'll officially have some other tickets up in just about a month.
Awesome. Thanks a bunch, Karen. So I guess we'll move on to our next panelist and speaker. So Josh, thanks for joining us, Josh. So you have a very interesting take on how you leverage XR at your organization. I mean, quite unique. I mean, really fast. I think quite fascinating. I'm interested myself, to be honest, in learning more. So Josh, you're working at the intersection of XR and biosensors. And you're using things, I guess, for health and fitness. And I know some of us sort of understand that. I mean, like I have an Apple Watch. I know that it counts my steps, tells me I'm not stepping enough. But how can these sensors be leveraged for XR? So how are you leveraging this for the work that you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, let me just say, Walter, thank you so much for putting this together. And Andrea, you as well. I'm so excited to have AWE here in Houston. Finally, it's been a long time coming, I'll say. So glad to, honored to be a part of this first event. So how do we use biosensors in VR? So, you know, you sent these questions beforehand, so I wanted to take this answer in 3 parts. So I'm going to give some background on this first. So the first thing I'd like to say is, it won't come as a shock to anyone here, but I think it's safe to say, particularly after this pandemic, our healthcare system, at least in the US, is broken. There are a lot of things that are wrong with it, not least of which, and kind of where we focus, is on the detection of disease and the early treatment and some preventative measures. Our healthcare system by nature is extremely reactive. We wait till there's something critically wrong with us. We go to the doctor, and then we're given pharmaceuticals to address it. So this is the first point that I'd like to make. The second is that if you're on this call, you see some sort of great future for augmented and virtual reality. In our case, we see it as a technology that is going to fundamentally change the way in which people react with or interact with the internet, with data, and eventually with each other. So that's the second point that I wanted to make. And the third is on to biosensors now. So, one of the things that I think is really important to note is that biosensors are going to be used in the context of AR, VR devices for a whole host of non-healthcare reasons. You've seen a lot of announcements recently about some of these sensors. So for example, there are headsets coming out that are using EMG sensors or cameras to monitor facial muscle activity in people. So this in the future, you can see this being used for expressive avatars and social interaction. You've got sensors like eye trackers that are going to be used extensively across every headset for things like foveated rendering and for creating social interaction through digital eye contact, which is just such a cool thing to be able to even think about. And then, a third example, and I could go on for the rest of the session, but you have several companies like Neurable and NextMind working on really cool EEG sensors that they envision being used for unique creative interfaces and controller-free user experiences in the future. So, okay, so those are three kind of disparate ideas. Let's recap, and then we'll bring them together to answer this question. So, so the first point I made was, diagnostics in the US are broken. I think the way that we go about fixing this problem is we need to develop systems that enable the early detection of disease through passive or extremely low friction data collection. The second point that I made was, XR is on a path towards ubiquity. So I think that eventually this is going to be our primary tool for accessing digital information. And then the third point, biosensors will eventually become commoditized and built into these augmented and virtual reality displays. So putting everything together now. So when you're in a virtual reality environment that we create, for example, at C3, we control all of the stimulus that goes into your body. So we control everything you're seeing, we control everything you're hearing. In the case of companies like FeelReal and OVR, we control what you're smelling even, right? So we control your entire sensory stack. So the core idea here is if we control that aspect of your experience, now if you consider a headset that has all these sensors integrated, I've just described a closed loop system, right? So I present a stimulus to you and I get to monitor how your body reacts to that stimulus, or in other words, how your brain is processing that stimulus. And this, so basically what this will end up being is, I believe, one of the most powerful behavioral health monitoring tools that we've ever created as a species, I guess. So that's why we're really excited about this intersection of these two technologies, and why we're so focused on kind of making that future possible in healthcare. So
awesome.
Long answer. There you go.
Yeah, no, it's a great answer. I mean, really great. And thanks for breaking it up. I mean, I could easily flow with that and made it easier to understand. And cool. Thanks for painting that picture. So I know you work on some things that, are fairly confidential. I know you're probably not allowed to share everything that you're working on, but if there are a few examples or project examples you could walk us through, maybe even without naming names, etc. Could you talk us through what does the solution look like? What do you need physically to do this, and what kind of virtual elements might be there in order to monitor these sensors? And so what is this kind of solution like? Paint us a picture.
Yeah, awesome question. So, in the introduction, you said that we focus on psychiatric use cases. of the technology. So we do a lot, like here on Earth, that'll make sense in a second, but we do a lot with various academic institutions around the country, looking at neurological problems, psychiatric diseases, et cetera, and how these two technologies work there. But something that I feel like would be more interesting to talk about would be the work that we're doing with the Human Research Program at NASA. We've been working on a whole variety of different solutions for them over the last couple of years. And so one of them, we recently just announced a couple months ago, so I'd love to chat about that a little bit. So if you don't mind, I want to make sure I'm not going over time here. Can I give a little bit of background on just space health and some of the problems that are expected?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay, cool. Cut me off. I tend to go off on rambles, so I apologize. But great. So, there's been so much excitement around space travel over the last couple years. I'd argue, since the 1960s, but more recently, you have all these new entrants like SpaceX, Blue Origin, spaceflight adventures. There's so many companies now that are jumping into this commercial spaceflight conversation. Something that's really that we're working on is, NASA is planning to send 4 astronauts to Mars sometime in the 2030s. I have a feeling that but at the rate that we're going, we're probably going to do it before then. But anyway, these are the solid plans that are laid out today. So effectively, this is going to be a flyby mission, right? So the spacecraft will go around Mars and then come all the way back home. And this is really this is going to serve the function of helping NASA understand, all of the implications on the human system of being in space for that duration of time and that distance from Earth, right? So all in, this is about a 30-month mission that they're anticipating. And, for everyone trying to kind of picture this in your mind, I want you to imagine being in a medium-sized RV with 3 people that you just met a year ago, for 30 months. And it turns out if you open the door to that RV and you step outside, you get sucked in the vacuum of space and freeze to death. So to say it's a stressful situation is a gross understatement. And so there are a bunch of these little problems that come up in the context of this mission that aren't just immediately intuitive. So for example, today on the ISS, if I have some sort of massive, medical anomaly and I'm in an emergency now, so I can simply just call down to the flight surgeon, or my crew can. The flight surgeon on Earth can talk me through. When I say flight surgeon, by the way, flight surgeon and NASA speak is like the person who manages the health, holistically of the astronaut. So I call down to the flight surgeon. They can walk me through either a treatment paradigm that I can go through, or worst case scenario, I can get that astronaut home within a week to get them back here on Earth and give them the proper care. So when you're 30 million miles from Earth, a couple things aren't possible. Number one, there is latency and communication. So when I make that call down to the flight surgeon, there's periods of the mission where it'll actually take 20 minutes for that message to get to Earth and then 20 minutes back. So any real-time countermeasure or communication that's necessary there is not possible. You might see where, some of the things, Walter, that you're more familiar with working in these enterprise settings. So you can imagine remote guidance of surgical procedures being extremely important to have on board, that real-time information sharing that's possible through an augmented reality display, extremely important. Anyways, I feel myself rambling, but I'm basically setting the scene for space health to get to your answer. There are a ton of risks that I could go on. One of the ones that we really focus on at Z3, and kind of a point that I was making earlier, is the early detection of disease. So we need to make sure, speaking on behalf of everyone who's interested in sending someone to Mars, we need to make sure that we are able to detect diseases before they become mission critical. And so when I say diseases, I'm not necessarily talking about breaking an arm, but I'm talking specifically about psychiatric and neurological diseases. we need to protect these folks and their brains as they're going. Because as I mentioned, this is about as stressful as a situation as you can put a human in. So how do we do that? So basically, we are working with several groups across NASA, building a VR experience that does a couple things. So I'll keep it very general, and if you want to dive deeper, feel free to pepper me with questions. But in essence, what we're doing is we're taking a standalone virtual reality headset, we're integrating into it a very high performance eye tracker that allows us to monitor the micro movements in the eye at a really high quality, I suppose I'll say. And then we've developed tests that allow us to basically present a stimulus, as I mentioned earlier, presents a stimulus to the subject or the astronaut. And then the system that we use, it basically we can monitor 52 different parameters of what's called ocular motor function or eye movements. And we're able to take these eye movements and make inferences about the neurological or psychiatric state of the person that is going through our test. So we've already, there's published research using an analog to our device that's shown the ability of this type of system to detect, things like mild traumatic brain injury, things like, Parkinson's, schizophrenia, all sorts of things that there's empirical data to support this type of system and its use. So that is one example of a project that we're using. So we're looking forward to, I'll say, keep an eye on LinkedIn or maybe on our website. We have some pretty big announcements that we're looking forward to making soon about this. So, anyways, I'll stop.
Perfect. There. No, I just have one. Well, I got two last questions for you, real quick, Josh. I guess the one. So, you mentioned. So I get how you're sort of using the sensors and the eye tracking, etc. So do you have to trigger any certain activities during the session and then monitor it, or are you monitoring it and just sort of watching it over time? What's the trigger, or what are you trying to metric? Is it time, or is it?
This is a really, really great question, actually. So, and it speaks to one of the points that I made earlier, which, I made a point to mention specifically passive data collection. What I've described to you just there is active data collection. So I said that we're presenting a specific stimulus that the subject is interacting with. Where is this going in the future? We want to take these eye movements that we're monitoring with this specific stimulus and observe them passively. So basically the idea is as a 17-year-old is playing Beat Saber and just interacting with a game or, walking around AltSpace or something, we're in the background running these analytical tools to monitor their eye movements. So you can really think of this as like the AFib monitor on an Apple Watch. That's the exact type of functionality we're talking about, just with brain health as opposed to heart health, right? So there's a world in which, just by interacting with these experiences in VR, we're able to start predicting disease states that are possible in the future. So yeah, super important point. I think that's certainly where we're heading, is trying to do all of this passively. So
awesome. Very cool. And for anyone who wants to learn more about what Z3VR is doing, where do they go? LinkedIn?
Sure. Yeah, we do a god awful job about talking about ourselves, really horribly bad. But I suppose I'm going to try and get better with Karen's guidance and looking at the way Sean advertises the Industrial Excellence Forum. But I guess what I'll say there is just add me on LinkedIn, reach out over email. I'd love to talk about this stuff. So josh@z3vr.com and that'll do. So cool.
Gotcha. Yeah, it looks like we had a couple of folks who actually had. I'll pull one question from the chat real quick before we go to Sean. Sorry, Sean. Give me just a moment. So one was asking if there's any. Have you heard of any instances where there's guidelines on collective use of this biometric data on the enterprise side, or even military, or is this at the moment have you seen it mostly in space and medical?
Yeah, great question. So I think from a healthcare perspective, so I see, I'm looking at Susan's question right there. So are you talking specifically about healthcare or just biometric data in general? Because I saw someone reference the IEEE group. That's
right. It looks like well, I think it looks like from Susan's question, she was really mostly referring to preferential overreach, like personal data.
Sure.
Do you have any feedback on that? Oh, go ahead, Susan.
Oh, sorry. Hey there. So it's exactly that. A lot of, even though you can anonymize some of that data, you still probably need approval to collect it if your employee personal data guidelines do not otherwise cover that type of data. So I'm interested, as we get into a very fascinating space, if anyone has yet come to that level of saying, how do we change our enterprise personal data privacy, or at least have it reviewed for that caveat?
Yeah. So amazing question. I think that, you know, in terms of the kind of future vision that I just kind of laid out with where this goes with the passive collection, you know, I think that it's even more stringent than what you're seeing today in the enterprise, especially when you start talking about things that are really hard to de-identify, like eye tracking data in particular. You know, I've seen, you know, there was companies are getting in trouble for doing just research on identifying folks by their gait. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, just like, you know, just the way their body moves, you can start to pull out, you know, whether or not it's, you can start to pull out identities from that. From our perspective, you know, we're choosing the people that, or the use cases that we're going after in a very strategic way. So, you know, in working with NASA, with the military, with pharmaceutical companies, these are all organizations that have their own extremely strict guidelines around the use of the data that we can just follow, right? And so I think that what I saw, you know, over the last couple of years, as I've been working with you know, companies like Walters and kind of learning about the policies that they have in place. Frankly, they don't really think about these questions around biometric data privacy. So yeah, super important question. I just rambled and I didn't answer it, so I apologize. One thing I'd say that you should go look up, Kent Bai, who is like this prolific VR speaker. He does a lot of other things as well. He's put together a group that focuses on the ethics of VR and the ethics of data collection. And as I jump off and shut up so Sean can speak, I'll put that in the chat for you to go check out.
Awesome.
But great question.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Now we'll switch over to Sean. So, and now we're going from space and health over to industrial. So, which is an area, at least I understand a little bit more than the area Josh was just speaking about, and I could relate to. So let's switch over to industrial space. So Sean, you run one of the largest events dedicated to the use of AR and VR for industrial, the Industrial XR Forum, that happens each year in Houston. So first off, I love the forum. I went last year. I found it great, and not just because I get to walk on an omnidirectional treadmill, but also it has a number of great speakers, you know, and great, you know, not just speakers, but there's hardware, there's software, there's a lot of things that you could try out while you're at the event, which I thought made it very interesting. So for those who might not have an industrial sector background, can you give us a few examples of some of the brands that participate and what those brands do?
Sure, happy to. Howdy, everyone. Thank you so much, Walter, for having us. Thank you, Andrea. Excited about participating in this inaugural AWE Houston and putting together an ecosystem. That's always exciting for us. I'll go through mine pretty quickly because I don't have nearly the technical chops of Josh or Karen, so it's a lot easier. But yes, to give you a quick idea, really what, you know, if you think about it, I appreciate the kind words about our event. We're still a baby. We're like a toddler. We're coming into year 3. So we've only had 3 years of this where the industrial market really has started to look at immersive tech and adopt it in a real way. So we're excited about, the first year we had, I don't know, just over 100 folks, I think, and maybe a dozen booths, and they were all very Houston centric. So to answer your question specifically, what we saw in 2020, where we were hugging and high-fiving and shaking hands in late February, like we would live forever, it was kind of amazing, but we did see a lot more regional and some, North American brands were there. So hardware, we saw quite a bit, particularly anything that's attached to remote workforce. We started to see a lot more but all for the industrial setting, right? A lot of things attached to hard hats or, so if you see a HoloLens 2, it was attached to something like a hard hat or something in that genre. But then we also have a lot of content developers because a lot of the items that we'll be discussing in a moment in the survey results showcase that we have a lot of training, learning, development. So there's a lot of content developers who were there. And then we had folks who had, some of the additional items that you would imagine in the hardware space, the gloves, the suits, the omnidirectional. And then last but not least, we've got the folks who are helping them put it all together. Some of the consultancies and groups who are helping people accelerate their programs. So we jumped to about, I don't know, I think we had almost 400 of us at this last one in 2020 and about 30 exhibits.
And so what makes, and I guess, so my first other question here. So why Houston for the Industrial XR Forum? I guess what led you to bring it here?
Sure. So if you think about industrial, like the areas that we cover, energy, engineering, Houston is obviously, we like to say the global headquarters. It's definitely one of the key centers around the globe. So it made a lot of sense from that standpoint. The other part with industrial, if you get into heavy manufacturing, anything in that area, as well as construction engineering, a lot of that's in middle America. So it's easy to get to Houston. And then even for the coasts, folks who are dealing with more in the power utilities markets, other parts of the industrial infrastructure, once again, easy flight into Houston. And if you look at where the vast majority of virtual reality, augmented reality, XR events take place, it's more on the coasts. So Houston was an area that we felt was less explored and really needed an event. And at the same time, a large part of our audience was right here.
Right, great. And you're giving out a ticket to the Industrial XR Forum that you're hoping that you're going to have here later on this year. Can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect from this format? Is it going to be different? I know we're just coming out of COVID. You ran, I guess, just as you'd usually do last February. But what can we expect this year?
Sure. Like everyone else, we did the pivot to digital and have had a wide variety of digital events. And we'll continue doing that throughout the spring. But for us, we're looking forward September to moving to the summit, which is going to be a hybrid. So we feel fairly confident is the best way to put it at this time, I think, after watching starts and stops over the last few months. We feel fairly confident that there's going to be enough folks who are going to be able to meet in person, but we are calling it a hybrid. So it'll actually have the in-person aspect of it, and it'll be digital at the same time. So that's going to be kind of exciting so that we could still serve that global audience who we've picked up digitally. There's almost 7,000 folks now, part of the community who are around the world. And then hopefully we'll still be able to bring the folks who can travel within North America, likely at the event physically.
Awesome. So last question, I guess, before we get on to the results from the forum, what about how can folks learn more about Industrial XR Forum? Where can they go?
Sure, I'll drop it in the chat. It's industrialxrforum.com, and particularly if you go to the resources, everything's on there. Like for instance, when I say everything, you can see our weekly newsletters where you get project and tech updates for the industrial XR market. Also, for those of you who like to watch, videos, it's almost like Netflix, but it's just XR. I don't know, so a little different. But we've got on the resources section a bunch of our old sessions. So you've got great sessions with Chevron, Shell, Schlumberger, a lot of folks on this call who've shared from service companies who've been part of it as well. So there's pretty good content on there. It's all free. So just go on and you can take a look at it.
Awesome. Awesome. Then I guess I'll pass it over to you. I know we're running a little bit short on time, but I think we're okay if we run a little bit over. We'll make time for the for the trivia so that we can give out those tickets that I know everyone's waiting for.
Absolutely, not a problem. I can easily go through this very quickly for you. And I'll tell you what, easily to contact me, you can hit me up either through the IXR forum, Industrial XR forum, or on LinkedIn, and I'll send you this deck, okay? So if I move too fast for people, not a problem. So this is a summary of our Industrial XR sector survey. So we do this typically on an annual basis. We've been doing some pulse surveys to kind of see how things have been changing throughout COVID. It's been kind of interesting, and I'll give you a couple verbal updates there. But we ask a lot of questions. We won't be going through all that. This goes out to almost 1,000 industrial end users. So from throughout the energy complex. So oil and gas, power, utilities, manufacturing, you name it. And this represents a little over 300 responses. So pretty good amount of responses are in our sector survey. But we get in very in depth on a lot of questions, but I'm going to give you a quick overview here and kind of walk you through it. But what we have, that kind of shows you the companies who are we're working with to get the information. And then we jump to the survey. So first question people ask, and remember, this is industrial. So this, this is entertainment. This is not hospitality, gaming, all the other cool sectors, medical, this is us. So you can see, I don't think any big surprise here. Vast majority at the early stage, right? 34% POCs, proof of concept, field trials, exploration, 15% just research. They're just trying to figure it out. 28% are in the initial launch, 18% scaling, the very few, the proud, the enterprise wide. So just 3%. So this was Q2 of 2020. So just to give you an idea, this is the 2020 survey. So we're right now gearing up to do the 2021, and the results will be released in September at the summit. Format they're using, no real surprise, they can do multiple answers here. And when I say no real surprise, when I show you the 2 slides from now, why it's not a surprise, but basically virtual reality, pretty high, augmented reality, fairly low, XR, pretty large. And I'll show you why that is happening. What type of devices? We also get into a lot of questions around devices. So I won't go into all of that, how many they have deployed, a variety of different questions. We get a lot into their budgets, but tablets, mobile phones, right up there. So a lot of people always focus more on the AR and VR, on the glasses and the goggles, and they don't realize that there's an awful lot of folks who are deploying through devices that are already something someone has and is approved. When I say no surprise, this is where they see the most value right now for industrial operations for their XR. So you notice training, learning, development, #1 with a bullet. So that goes back to why it's very likely that we see quite a bit more VR versus AR, meaning it's not as much out in the field. It's more of things they're doing back at headquarters or back at regional to do training and learning development has been the earliest adoption. But we see moving up fairly quickly from 2019, 2020, remote inspection. And we also see some data visualization and virtual design engineering. Those were almost non-existent in 2018. And employee communication, I could tell you verbally, I don't have a slide to back it up at the moment, but our initial pulse surveys show this one's rapidly increasing, as you would imagine, during COVID. We ask here about the specific departments that are involved. A lot of people always have this question because industrial, they're kind of like, wow, it's like needles in haystacks. How do I know who's doing it? And I'm like, well, now you can see why. It's a lot of haystacks. So there's a lot of individual departments. Very few, only 17% have a dedicated immersive department that's involved. You can see quite a bit on the R&D innovation, no real surprise. IT has to vet your tech stack, anything you're plugging in. Operations, you can see, is getting pretty large. They actually are looking at how can I use this, and I'm going to use it. Training, learning, development, once again, outlier, 70+%. So if there's an immersive program, the current state in 2020 with training, learning, development is going to be involved. and then maintenance, engineering, etc. And I know I'm rushing through these. Like I said, if you hit me up, I'm happy to give you the deck. Here we ask about their business cases. I don't think there's any real surprise here. Cost savings tied with increased safety, 70 some odd percent. This is critical infrastructure. I don't think anyone would be amazed on that. I thought somewhat interesting to be innovative, which ties into their digitalization programs, fairly high, looking for efficiencies, speed of training, and increased employee satisfaction as well as retention. So those were a couple of the big pieces. We asked about their biggest obstacles. We actually asked a lot of questions here, but obviously, pretty hard. ROI is hard to prove. If they don't have the right use cases, it can be very challenging. Obviously, board level senior management buy-in. Very rarely is it the tech. It's more going to be, especially folks who are out in the field, once again, connectivity and wireless. So those are kind of the big areas. Looking forward to having some tickets go out for this September 14th and 15th. We'll bring everybody together. And last but not least, anybody have projects, tech, anything to share? I mean, we've got constant channels we have to fill. So if you want to be interviewed, give us details about your tech or your use cases, and you're an end user, let me know.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for going through that. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of that resonated with me. I know as you were going through it, and just the conversations I've had with others. I mean, that rang all pretty true to me. So now on to XR trivia. So I'm going to hit play, and I'm going to hope that this all goes as planned. My first time running a live trivia. So we'll be using Kahoot. So if you have Kahoot on your phone, you can join from the phone, or you can go to the web. So I'll give everyone a chance to open up a browser window. It's kahoot.it, and I'll be sharing an option on how to join in a minute. So you can either join from the Kahoot app or kahoot.it. You can push play on, I think it's in the top right corner of the Kahoot website, and it'll ask you for your PIN, or if you have the Kahoot app on your phone. So also thank you, Agreco, for sponsoring this instance of Kahoot. A lot of the questions are going to be based off the Industrial XR forum, and here we go. So this is time-based. It's not just if you get it right, it's also how quickly you get it right. So questions are based off Industrial XR sector survey results, and there's double points for questions about panelists. So first off, are you ready to go?
Never.
Only 2 answers, 3, 4, 5. Oh, not everyone. We've got a few seconds, 8, 7 timers on the left. All right, this one was a freebie just to give everyone a chance to get sorted. So everyone's ready. We're going to go now. Here's where the points start. So we're going on to the next question. So where are most companies' current AR/VR programs? So Sean just talked about this. At what phase are most companies' AR/VR programs? And we have about, I think there's around 20 seconds a question. So we've got most answers in. And it was POC's field trials. All right, looks like 5 of you have got that right. Moving on. Kieran is in the lead. So we got Kieran on top.
Yay!
All right, double points. First question. Which video game is not one of Karen's favorites? So not one of Karen's favorites. The rest of them are. She loves them all. You guys answer pretty quickly. I think some of you have played this before. Oh, and it was Street Power Soccer. Street Power Soccer was not one of Karen's top games. And it looks like the majority of folks got that right. Moving on.
Yay,
Oh, we have a new leader that gives, Kitan just jumped up on the board. Okay, true or false? AR head-mounted devices were the most utilized devices for XR programs. I think I put a little bit too much time on the clock. I want to make this a little quicker next time. Oh, there we go. So false. And the majority of you have got that right. Let's see who our leader is. Well, Josh is on fire. So Josh has a win streak of 4. He just might not be as quick as Ketum is for getting the answers right. So another set of double points. What is Josh's favorite hobby? I'm going to go with palm reading, but
I should have done brain scans. Brain scan reading.
So rock climbing is one of Josh's favorite hobbies, and majority of folks got that right. Catan is on fire. He has a streak of 5. Josh pulls up. Well, I hope Josh would know that one. So true or false? Training, learning, and development are the departments most involved in organizations' XR programs. So there we go. That was quick. Everyone got that one right. Catan is back on top and on fire with a streak of 6. All right, our second to last question, double points. What is Sean's current favorite TV show? What is Sean watching right now? Oh, looks like majority of folks were leaning towards Heartland, but it was Stanley Tucci Searching for Italy. All right, we got Stu on top now. Just took the lead. And one more question, the last one. Which format of immersive technology are organizations currently exploring or utilizing? And that was right. So I think this is going to come down to who answered this the quickest.
Nail biter.
And third place is Catan. Second place, Josh. And first place and the winner of 2 tickets to the Industrial XR Forum is Stu.
Yay.
You won a couple of tickets.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. So Stu, you can either shoot me an email or ping me over on LinkedIn, and I can send your details over to Sean, or I'm sure Sean, they could probably ping you directly.
Will do.
But Stu, well done. Congratulations.
Thank you all. Appreciate that.
No worries.
A lot of fun.
Yep. Thank you, Sean. All right. And that's all we have for today. So that was it for AWE Night Houston. Thank you all for joining. I'm glad that we had such a great turnout, and I'll look forward to seeing you all at the next one. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Walter.